Welcome to the ArmaniTalks Show, episode 22. I am your host, Armani Talks. In this show, I am covering a range of soft skills from public speaking, storytelling, emotional intelligence, and much more. The ArmaniTalks Show is released on the first day of the month, and here we are on November 1st. I'm surprised because I could have just sworn I was celebrating New Year's not too long ago, and time has already passed. We're going to go through November, and by December, the year is up. It's strange because we think about time a little bit more seriously as the year is winding down. The middle of the year often escapes us, but the beginning of the year and the end of the year, that's when we're perceiving time in a certain sort of way. And when you are into self-improvement, these two parts of the year, the beginning and the end, they're very sacred. For the beginning of the year, the way that we perceive it is we have a lot of optimism, a lot of joy, a lot of desires about what we're going to do. By November to December, we start to evaluate what we have done. And unfortunately, a lot of people at this state are somewhat bummed out. They're like, well, I was supposed to get a six-pack, but here I am. I look the exact same. I was supposed to make $10,000 a month with my business, but here I am making $1,500. I was supposed to be more social this year, but here I am just watching this video by myself. By the end of the year, we start to evaluate what we did and what we couldn't do, and we're somewhat realistic. I believe we should always have a continuous mindset. Yesterday on my newsletter, ArmaniTalks.com/newsletter, which you should subscribe to, ArmaniTalks.com/newsletter. Sign up. I was talking about what evolution is all about. Evolution does not mean that you are always perfect. Evolution means that you are starting off at a certain level and you're continuously improving. Those are the two most important words you need to understand. Continuous and improving. Continuous implies that you should never have a it's done mentality. The second that you have an it's done mentality is when you're starting to feel a little bit depressed. In my book, Speakeasy, I say that you should never think that you're climbing the top of a mountain. That's typically the perception that we get whenever we're thinking about success. You're going from point A to the tip of the mountain. And once you're at the top, you're starting to think, well, I figured it all out. Now what? Nothing. Now you're going to feel depressed. Avoid that mentality at all costs. It's much better when you have the everlasting path mindset where there's this walkway right in front of you. It never ends. It goes on forever. And for the rest of your life, you are walking forward. We're human. So what's going to happen every now and then is we're going to go to the left, we're going to go to the right, we're going to stray away from our path. But as long as we keep coming back and moving forward for the rest of our lives, then we are evolving, we are leveling up, and we are displaying what it means to have continuous improvement. Another way to have this continuous mentality is to always tinker. Whenever we think of tinker, we think of little kids. Little kids, if you give them toys, it's not too long until they break it. They break it because they're trying to see what's in the toy. How does it function? I recall when I was a little kid, my mom's older brother, he one time bought me this cell phone that had this recording device within it. So it actually felt like a cell phone, where back in those days, I'm talking like late 90s, this was an innovative piece of technology. I couldn't believe that I had this toy while all these other kids were playing with Power Rangers. I just kept playing with it. I would record different audio and I would make it seem as though I was actually having a phone call with someone, which was myself. Eventually, I got curious. How does it exactly work to record something? I mean, isn't it somewhat magical? At one point of my life, I'm recording something, and at another point, I could just play it back. Something about this seems magical. Doesn't anyone else see the magic behind this? No one did. Everyone's like, shut up, kid. Just play with your toy and leave us alone. So what I started to do was I started to get the screwdrivers in the house and I started to take the toy apart. I started to tinker with it. Unfortunately, back then, I couldn't put the toy back together. And when I couldn't put it back together, the main lesson that I took away from that was, Armani, you broke your beloved toy. Back to the Power Rangers for you. It would take me years until I entered the College of Engineering to realize that what I was doing as a kid is what we did for our studies. Our job was to take things apart, see how they worked, and then rebuild it. If you could rebuild it, then you will probably know more about electrical engineering than a lot of people that just read books all day. You understand the process of how the wires intertwine, what exactly are capacitor, circuit boards, etc. And that is when you have the tinkering mentality. When you take it apart, the other thing that you learn to do is you learn to feel more bold. You feel bold because you think, who says I have to put it back together exactly the way that I found it? Why not change it up a little bit? So this is where, even though I don't respect people that are obsessed with cars, I will give them props for one thing. The one thing that I will give them props for is that the second that they realize they could morph their car, let's say they take out one engine and put another engine in there, the second that they do that, they become really bold. They start to play with, I don't even know if I'm getting the phrases right, like exhaust, turbines, different types of cylinders, whatever. And these are the ultimate tinkerers. People who are obsessed with cars, that's all they do in their free time. So even though I don't respect people that are too obsessed with cars, I respect their ability to tinker because the ability to tinker implies continuous improvement. Now you may be thinking, well, why don't you respect people who like cars a lot? I've made detailed posts about this in the past. I can't stand people who have very loud cars, mainly because I think they're selfish individuals. I think they think a little bit too much about themselves and their desires rather than the community that they're living in, rather than the other people on the road, rather than care at all about people with heart issues. They don't want to hear a loud on the highway. And these people, they drive so slow, surprisingly. You would think that when you are investing so much in your car for it to sound so loud that you're going to drive fast. No, a lot of these guys on empty spaces are just driving really slow to really look like a douchebag. Like they want to drag out their douchebag perception towards others because a part of them knows that they can. And they're looking at others like, what, you don't like my loud car? Then do something about it. And other people can't do anything about it because it is a free country. So all in all, I don't respect people that are too obsessed with cars. I think that's one of the worst hobbies to have. And if you have a hobby like that, or your kid has a hobby like that, you should be very alarmed because people who are too obsessed with cars, unfortunately, die very early deaths. They do a lot of ridiculous things on the roads, and this causes them to eventually one day just lose control. Once they lose control, they put other people's lives at risk. I mean, it's just not good. I don't respect people that are too obsessed with cars. And it's just one of these habits that it may work solo, but you have to be able to modify certain behaviors when you're living in society. I tell one of my buddies this all the time. He is one of the loudest talkers that you will ever meet. I mean, you will be just sitting next to him on a couch and he is talking your ear off so loud. I could somewhat handle it because we're in the comfort of my own house or his house. It's a private area. But whenever we're going to restaurants, this guy has the same exact tone. Actually, he's speaking a little bit louder because there are other people that is somewhat drowning out his voice. So he's just like yelling pretty much. And I could see other people looking at us. I'm just like, shh, shh, shh. And he's like, wait, what? Nah, man, this is just how I talk. In a very super loud way. I'm like, yeah, but bro, we're in public. I'm trying to make this really quick. I don't want to chastise someone and drag it out. I'm just like, shh. And people don't like to be shushed at all, especially when they're your friend, and especially when they don't think they deserve to be shushed. He's making a compelling case. Well, I paid for my food. I should be able to do whatever I want to do. And this is when I have to have the conversation with him. There's certain behaviors that we can do in a solo sense that we should not be automatically implying that it's normal on a societal sense. It's not. I mean, the creepy thing with these sorts of conversations is that it's always going to be able to be logically justified by the person that is doing the bad habit. The people with the super loud cars, they could easily logically justify it. The people who speak super loud in restaurants where people are trying to enjoy their time, they could justify it. Whatever selfish behavior someone is exhibiting in public, just understand that from your lens, you think they're being super emotional and they lack logic. But from their lens, if you ask them to explain their position, they can give you a thesis paper level logic argument for what they're doing. It doesn't really matter. The main difference between a selfish person and a selfless person, it's not the logic. It's the pool of experiences that they are weighing. Where the selfless person, they're logical, but they're not only prioritizing their own experiences, they're prioritizing their experiences along with other people that are involved in the shared space. And similarly, selfish people, they're just as logical, but rather than weighing in everyone's experiences within this shared space, they're only weighing in their experiences. That's just what happens. And you see this more than ever in the gym. In the gym, you start to see what people are made out of, what their character is all about. You see whether they re-rack or don't re-rack. I recall I was in the gym last Sunday. I was doing some squats, and there was so many empty spots. But there was this old, smelly man that literally pulls up right next to me, sets up shop there, and he's doing these obnoxious workouts where he's literally getting in my space. I'm doing squats, going up, down. This guy is on the other mat, but he's angling his body facing me and doing one of these things where he's doing those knee drops. I'm like, dude, you're kind of like getting in my space a lot. Don't you think it would have been a little bit smarter for you to set up shop 2 rows down? So you're not literally just getting into my spot. Because now I'm trying to do my squats. I'm doing heavy weights. And now I'm smelling you. That's problem number 1. And problem number 2 is you're like so close where your sweat drips are on my mat. This guy was just a very look at me kind of guy. A very selfish kind of guy. And then eventually he moves, right? He goes all the way to the treadmill. But a bunch of his weights are just there. And it's a bunch of these little weights, and he left 2 of the weights on my mat. So now I'm like, man, I don't just want to leave these 2 mats or these 2 weights on my mat because it makes it seem like I'm not re-racking, where these weren't even my weights to begin with. So in the gym, you can tell a lot about someone's character based on, are you guys re-racking? Are you being overly loud? I mean, there are some guys in the gym that are literally just slamming weights. It's one thing if you go to a gym that is designed for that. You're going to one of those athletics gym, go ahead, do whatever you need to do. But when you're going to a local Crunch Fitness where there are old people, family men, teenagers and stuff that are just going there to work out, just be basically fit, and you're over here slamming weights, grunting, just making a big scene, is that really needed? For that guy, he will say, absolutely. That's just how I work out. But for people in the gym, it's like, come on, man, be a little bit more considerate. And it goes all the way to people who record in the gym. I get it. I mean, if you're a content creator, your living is made from your content. And if you're a fitness influencer, then you're going to get your content in the gym. But now it comes to, what about the other people? I mean, they're not saying they're fine with you recording them and stuff. Have you been watching these audit videos recently? These videos are kind of weird, kind of cringy to me. I get the rationale for it, where these guys will go to public spaces and just record people, and the people will say, "Well, why are you recording me for?" And the person recording will say, "Well, this is what I call a First Amendment audit. I mean, technically, you're in a public space, so you're being recorded by others, right? You're being recorded by the government, local officials, etc. So it shouldn't bother you that I'm recording you." And I'm just trying to raise awareness on that. If you have a problem with me recording you, then you need to have a bigger problem with your local authorities. And this guy that's just trying to walk with his daughter on a Sunday is like, okay, but can you please stop recording me? Because I could directly see you. All these other people, I mean, I get it. I guess I'm being recorded, but I know for a fact, well, I don't even know if I'm going to be used in content for them. But for you, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be featured on your TikTok. I don't want that. And now this guy, the recorder, sees that this individual is going to give him a reaction, and they're just going back and forth. This type of content is really blowing up. There's a guy named Eli, the audit guy. And sometimes I watch this content, I just seethe with anger. Like, why are you being so annoying, man? I get why, because it is somewhat needed, because it is a First Amendment audit. I mean, if they can't necessarily record, then it's a limitation on our rights. At the other time, I know they're not doing it for the right intention. Just their mannerisms and everything, their approach, they are super hostile from the get-go. It's perfectly reasonable for people who have a camera shoved in their face to be like, "Hey, why are you recording for?" And these guys like Eli, the audit guy, will be like, "Don't worry about it." Like, what do you mean, don't worry about it, bro? I'm here with my daughter. I'm really curious. What are you recording for? And this guy is just so aggressive. And a lot of the times I just think, man, I know I shouldn't be thinking this. It's an intrusive thought. I really wish someone put hands on him, like someone beat him up. And one day, my wish was granted. There was a video of this Eli, the audit guy, getting beat up by an old man. And when he got beat up like that, he went from this tough guy who is always pretending to throw hands. Like, "Oh, you have a problem? All right, let's fight." And the other civilized person's like, "Okay, I'm not going to actually fight you." So they walk away. So this Eli guy is like, "See, I'm this tough guy. Whenever I throw up my hands, they know that I'm going to fight. And they don't want any problems with me." Until that old man beat him up. And when he beat him up, Eli ran to the cops. He ran. And he was out of breath. He was slurring his words. It sounded like he was going to have a heart attack. It was just a big mess. And I just thought, good man, you deserve to get beat up. Some people in the real world, they deserve to get beat up. Go back to doing what you're doing, but do it with a little bit more respect in your voice. That's a very big word nowadays, respect. How do you define respect? That's actually a good talk to have right now. I view respect as assigning importance to someone, okay? And my philosophy with respect is you should not respect everyone. You should respect respectable people, and you should ignore disrespectful people, or sometimes you got to match energy with disrespectful people. Because if you respect everyone, I think that's somewhat destructive, because it doesn't really show respect to the phrase respect. It's sort of like if you go to a very poor restaurant. I mean, the staff is rude, the utensils are dirty, you're seeing roaches all over the spot, and you're thinking, okay, whatever, I'm still going to give them a 5-star review. In the future, a new customer sees your 5-star review and thinks that this is a good establishment. They come and they have the same exact experience, a bad one, and they give a 5-star review as well. Do you think you're doing any justice to future customers by giving a bad place a 5-star review? No. And this restaurant is never going to have the incentive to improve. Similarly, if you're over here respecting respectable people, you're speaking to them in a very polite sort of way. You're saying, "I understand you. I am listening to you." You're using all these fancy buzzwords. These people, think nothing is wrong. They think this is the smart way to act, and they're going to continue to act like that. Big problem. My philosophy with disrespectful people is, I'm just not gonna chill with you. I mean, the thing is, nowadays I have way more control over who I respond back to. So if this is consistently a whiner, consistently a very selfish person, I'm not gonna respond back to you. For what? Other times, I may be forced to interact with them. Maybe it's for work, or maybe I'm going to an establishment and they're my service. For people like that, I'll sometimes match energy. It's not always worth it to match energy, but sometimes it is. Because if you're not rude back with rude people, they never get like punched in the nose, figuratively speaking. Because when someone is very rude, and you never like just punch them in the nose, they are completely blind to their behavior. I recall there was this one girl when I used to be in this organization called BSA, Bengali Student Association. I was the social chair, so I would be responsible for throwing events. There was this one girl that would never contribute, right? Whenever it was time to actually throw the events, she would not do anything. Until a day or two before the events, she was just shooting everyone's ideas down, trying to be overly involved suddenly. And I recall one day she was making a lot of these sarcastic remarks about me in the meeting. I was aware of it. And I recall the first day I let it slide. The second day, I went really aggressive on her. And I don't think she was expecting it. And she was, in my opinion, not the best person. She's what we call a snitch. She told her mom and dad, or like trying to call me, like trying to create this peace deal. I'm like, look, you guys got to check your daughter. Don't try to check me. Your daughter is the one who is speaking out of turn, and that may work in your household. But when she's out there in the real world, everyone's not always going to be nice to her. So I said what I said. I didn't apologize. And some of the stuff I said, I mean, I was like 21, 22 at the time. It needed to be said. I know like the white knights and the simps, they'll be like, oh man, how could you say that to a woman? It doesn't matter, man. It doesn't matter if it's a woman, if it's a guy. I don't view it like that. I view it as, are you a respectable person or a disrespectful person? And disrespectful people every now and then need to be dealt with accordingly. That's my 2 cents. And I always found it somewhat weird when people are talking about equal rights this, equal rights that, but they show blatant favoritism for a certain gender, depending on the scenario. Like if a girl is yelling at a guy, a lot of guys are meant to just take it. Because if you're a big dude, especially if you're a big dude and you're arguing with a girl, it's never going to make you look good. You're always going to look silly. Sort of like that one video of those 2 moms confronting Marshawn Lynch. If Marshawn Lynch, who is this monstrous sized, running back in the NFL, is arguing with 2 ladies, he is automatically going to look silly, right? So we put the onus on the man to exit the scenario, right? 2 women are yelling at him, but we're putting the onus on the man to leave. On the flip side, if the man is yelling at the woman, people aren't telling the woman to leave. People will stop the man and be like, hey, what are you doing? You don't talk to a woman like that. And this same person behind the scenes will be like, equal rights this, equal rights that. It's not always equal rights with everything. There are certain things that I would say we have to put some leading on. For example, in Titanic, the women and the children are the first to leave. Do I agree with that? I think so. Yeah, I don't see everything in a completely 50-50 dynamic. I see life as left hand versus right hand. And I wouldn't even say left hand versus right hand. That's not the right phrasing. Left hand and right hand. So I am right-handed. I lead with my right hand. But if someone were to come up to me and said, okay, since you lead with your right hand, can I chop off your left hand? I'll say, of course not. Because just because I don't lead with my left hand doesn't mean I don't use it. The left hand amplifies, right? A lot of activities that I do with my right hand, it needs a support. And that is what my left hand is about. So one side leads and the other side amplifies. That is how I view life. And there are certain things that one person will lead on, and something else the other person will lead on. For example, with finances, if you're making more, you could absolutely lead with more money there, and then the other person contributes whatever they can. On the flip side, in that same relationship, the other person is great at planning. So they can plan while you'll just say, hey, I could help you out with whatever you need. Okay? So I don't think viewing everything in a completely 50-50 dynamic is a smart thing to do. I don't think everything is equal. I think certain things a person is better at. And from that, you build around that understanding. Certain people are better at certain things. And it's not the politically correct thing to say. It's seen as a somewhat of an irresponsible thing to say. It's like, well, what do you mean? No, I mean, no, everyone could figure it out. Not really, man. I mean, it may be a limiting belief on my end, but I don't think I will ever be a good test taker. That's just not how I learn. I know for a fact that there are always going to be guys that study less than I do that will score way better on tests. That's just something that I came to realization with. Tests aren't my thing. But what could be my thing is, let's say, writing. I could be super prolific and I could build an audience by being prolific and giving value in content in relation to soft skills. That's my gift. Where someone else's gift could be test taking. Being able to identify your gift, it takes time. And if someone cannot identify their own gift, if you can identify someone else's gift, that is a primal way to provide value. One of my buddies right now, he's getting into comedy. And if he's bad, I'll literally say, dude, I don't think you're actually funny, with all due respect. He's actually funny. I mean, the way that he makes certain jokes, his delivery, his timing, especially so early on in the game. I think he's only in it for like 2 to 4 years. It doesn't seem like that, though. He seems as though he has been more savvy than I was expecting him to be. And he's doing very good, in my opinion. So I'm saying, dude, your gift is humor. You should actually polish this gift up. And when he had certain inklings about his gift, and I came from the outside and I really solidified it for him, like, this is your gift, double down on it. That is me providing value to him. Because let's say I never come into the mix. What he's dealing with is a lot of doubt. His parents say, dude, what are you going to do with comedy? His sisters say, come on, like a comedian. His friends say, yeah, I mean, you could do it as a hobby, whatever. So he has this glimmer of, this may be my gift, but the outside world is constantly just drowning it out with negativity. And then here I come, just giving him a little sliver of clarity, which makes that glimmer that he had before radiate more. So if you spot gifts in someone, you need to say it. Like, hey, I don't know if you know this, and I truly do mean this. I think you're great at this. I don't think you're just good, but I think you're great already, and you have the capability to become even better. That's the ability to notice star power in people. Noticing star power is a great way to build an ally for life. The guy that shouted out the ArmaniTalks brand when I only had 18 followers, I always give him credit. Western Mastery, by the way. He gave me a shout out when I only had 19 somewhat followers. And after he gave me the shout out, I got like 200 followers the next day. And it just created this ongoing steam. He saw potential in me. Because others at that time, I mean, 19 followers, it just seems like a regular guy. He just saw that I was contributing on different people's pages. I was giving a lot of good public speaking tips. And he gave me a shout out. And after that, he allowed me to write a blog on his website, which back then was a high traffic website. And I still believe it is for male self-improvement. He believed in me. And even though we don't talk all the time nowadays, we moved on with our own lives. If he ever needs something from me, I'm just one DM away. So whenever people believe in us and they state why they believe in us, we respect them. And the thing is, we're willing to give more credit than they deserve. I think there were a couple of times when certain people discovered Toastmasters through the ArmaniTalks brand. And after they join Toastmasters and they give their first successful speech and they invest in the club and then they win a competition, they'll shoot me a DM and they'll be like, "Yo, Armani, because of you, I conquered public speaking fear." I'm like, who are you again? I never met you in my life. These people, like, they feel so much energy that they want to give credit to someone. That's what a lot of people just do. So if you just somewhat nudge them in the right direction and eventually they figure it out, they will give you way more credit than you actually deserve. I don't deserve that label of helping someone conquer their public speaking fear by simply recommending a club. But from their perspective, if I never recommended the club, they would have never known that a public speaking club exists. And since they wouldn't have known, they would have never conquered the public speaking fear. So you just need to nudge the people in the right direction. The caveat, though, is you really need to see talent in them. If you see that this is a great cook, a great speaker, a great writer, super funny, only then you should say, "Hey, look, you're really, really good at this. You could do it." All right. Otherwise, you don't want to feed into their delusions. Some people, they're super delusional. They have no clue what is really going on. And they feed onto this delusion for so long that they make others eventually feed onto this delusion as well. I used to know this guy in undergrad, or actually in high school, I would say, where I'll give him some more grace because he was in high school. This guy thought he was this good basketball player. He was fat, chubby, lacked athleticism, IQ, was not good at all. But he could have sworn that he was the best within our crew. And he would always get picked first. It was annoying because he spoke with so much confidence. But by the time that he was on your team, you would see that this guy sucked. So I don't believe in investing in other people's delusions. I believe in investing in people's dreams when they show that they have a solid work ethic. They're slowly figuring things out. It's not going to happen quick. I was actually having this conversation with one of my buddies recently where I talked about social media is good because it allows you to build an empire from your phone. But social media is bad because it creates this mentality that everything is going to happen quick. And the thing is, the people that you would assume to have wisdom, let's say the older generation, people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, who should be the ones saying, "Hey, trust me, things take time. It takes roughly 10 years to figure things out." Doctors, I mean, they're in school for 10 plus years. Why don't you think with your craft, your entrepreneurship craft, it's also going to take you 10 years? Come on, man, take your time. You would assume that the older generation will be making statements like this. But nowadays, the older generation has more of an instant gratification mentality than the younger generation. Because for the older generation, they're getting older, so they don't have forever to see you succeed. So they're kind of trying to make you rush your process. Like, come on, man, let's go. No, how come you still haven't figured it out yet? Not yet. It's already been 2 whole years. And they're making you panic. So you really got to watch out for the older generation getting in your ear, because there's 2 issues with the older generation getting in your ear, where with the younger generation, they're your peers, right? You could just say, "All right, bro, like, enough with the negativity. Go ahead, leave me alone." But for the older generation, they may be your guardian. They may be like a mentor. It may be your boss, someone who you have to somewhat respect because they're your elder. And now this is a person that is just speaking in your ear a lot. Older people always want to just tell younger people how to live their lives. And they're constantly just asking you questions of, how come you still haven't figured it out yet? Not understanding that it takes roughly 10, even like 12 years to figure things out. I notice people are really patient with doctors. but they're not patient with entrepreneurs. You know how difficult it is to start a business from scratch? Do you? I mean, Steve Jobs. When people think of Steve Jobs, they think he became a billionaire off Apple. He did not become a billionaire off Apple. He became a billionaire off Pixar. You know how long he worked on Pixar until it finally started to make money? 10 years. 10 years he was in constant stress because the animators needed money from him. And he, at this point, had gotten fired from Apple, the company that he founded. Next, his new company wasn't doing that well. He was just failing venture after venture. And still, he's having to invest in Pixar $50 million, $100 million, just investing straight cash into this project. 10 years he was not seeing anything until finally all the different dots started to connect. They go public and it made him a billionaire overnight. It wasn't really overnight. I mean, this is a man that struggled from 85 to 95, just straight struggling. And he finally got what was his. So we probably don't even know that. I mean, you guys actually should read what's it called? Creativity Inc. This is a great book that talks about how creative businesses function. And when you read stuff like this, I read a lot of autobiographies. I mean, I've like this whole section right here. I mean, I could just read a few of them right now. Ric Flair's autobiography, Walt Disney's biography, Will Smith's memoir, Malcolm X's autobiography, Jackie Chan's autobiography. Jackie Chan's one is my favorite, by the way. So many autobiographies. And this is when you just remove all the noise and you see, all right, man, tell me your story the way you want to tell me your story. All these guys, they are struggling for so freaking long, just grinding. People are saying, dude, get a real job. Dude, just quit. Dude, this is not for you. Grinding. And then they just start figuring it out. And when they start figuring it out, they just don't miss. You see, Jay-Z is like a rapper that nowadays I feel as though anything that he puts out, people are always just glazing him. Like, oh my God, Jay-Z this, Jay-Z that. And for a while, it was making me annoyed. I was like, man, why does everyone like him for? I mean, I get it, he's good and stuff, but how come no one is ever critical of him? Then I started listening to his music. I'm like, man, this is actually some deep stuff. But what really made me gain respect for him was I saw a video of him in the 80s rapping. He was a little guy then. I thought 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s. Dude has been in the game for a long time. Forgive me, my friend. You deserve all the success that you got. I was hating on you for no reason. You don't miss nowadays because you spent years on your craft. You're capable of distinguishing signal from the noise because you put so many reps in. Over 4,000 songs he's recorded. That is insane volume. Volume. That is one of my favorite words. And that is what people that understand that things are a process do. So the older generation, what they do is they often fail to understand that they put in a process, but for the new generation, they're somewhat impatient and they don't have that same respect on their process. So you really need to watch out with the older generation getting in your ear. You need to have certain fail safes involved. One thing is you don't want to cut them off because that's seen as disrespectful. So let them say whatever they need to say. Nod your head. I see. And every now and then just understand that they can give you one insight from a pile of negativity that can change your perspective for the best. This guy may be saying, come on, bro, you should have been successful by now, blah, 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 blah. Then one insight is, but if I were you, I would keep doubling down on this topic because I watched this video all the way from beginning to end. And then you think, this topic, well, tell me more. And then you start to understand, oh, I see. this topic is actually a good topic for me to double down on. Content creation, I've said it before and I'll say it again, it is one of the most fulfilling ways in order to make money because the sky's the limit. You never know what the potential could be. I mean, there are content creators I know pulling in $50K a month because of work that they did in the past. With content creation, there's two different philosophies. One philosophy is the individual content philosophy. The other philosophy is the body of work. ArmaniTalks brand focuses on body of work. So I don't really focus on the videos that I post today. These videos aren't really going to take off for another 4 to 5 years. They get plugged into the ArmaniTalks network where I never know how. Sorry about that. Just had a technical error. We're back to schedule. I never know exactly how a content piece is going to pop off. Once I post a content piece, let's say a YouTube video, eventually what I'll do is I'll make a blog in regards to that video, and then I'll match the YouTube video with the blog so it increases the relevance to anyone that is searching for the content. In the future, this combinational content approach leads to more search results. So the day that I post it, I'll probably get 50 views on it, but 5 years from now, I suddenly get 5,000 views on it. So whenever I create content today, my philosophy is that this content is really going to take off 4 to 5 years from now. Very similar to a person who is planting a seed. They don't ask, well, where's the tree today? They plant the seed, they continue to water it, and 4 to 5 years from now, that seed is growing into something that is more fruitful. So that is my philosophy with Armani Talks. Focus on the body of work, because the more content that you create in relation to your brand, the more that this brand will grow in power. The Armani Talks brand really utilizes the network effect, where I never know how someone is first discovering the Armani Talks brand. Are they coming from the podcast angle, from the YouTube angle, from the blog angle, from the book angle, from the Skillshare angle? There's so many different angles to come. For me, any path works. Come through whichever path you would like, because ultimately, it's the Armani Talks brand that you're eventually going to be supporting. That's how I view the Armani Talks brand. For me, the most important thing is the ArmaniTalks.com website. That is why I'm always promoting it. Go on ArmaniTalks.com. It makes sense because I own that entire website. And two is when I get you on that website, you're not being distracted by other people's content. You're just seeing Armani Talks content from blogs, videos, podcasts, classes, all of that consolidated into one area. Where a lot of people don't have my philosophy. They think websites are dead. They're like, why am I going to invest in a website? Why get, let's say, 30,000 people on your website per month when I could get 3 million views for one video? And I believe that is a perfectly reasonable point. You can do whatever strategy that you think is best for your brand. And I believe for certain brands, you have to take that 3 million views for one video strategy, because that's the only way that you're going to make money. Or with the Armani Talks brand, the topics that I cover, it's known as evergreen content: public speaking, storytelling, social skills, emotional intelligence, creativity, and level up mentality. These are 6 skill sets that were relevant 200 years ago, and it will be relevant 200 years from now. So whenever I'm creating content, I don't have that pressure on me to always think of the latest trendy news. But if you're in politics, for example, that's completely different. Politics, it is not an evergreen field. Political headlines that were relevant 2 weeks ago are not going to be relevant 2 weeks from now. Therefore, if you are within the political niche, you always need to be updated with the latest political news. And the more views that your tweets, podcasts, and YouTube videos get today, not 20 years from now, let alone 5 years from now, or anything like that, but today will determine whether or not you eat. The issue is a lot of outsiders, they cannot distinguish between business models, where if you are a content creator, you hopefully understand the business model. Where my business model is somewhat new, creating a network. Where we see CBS, ABC, NBC, and stuff a lot, their networks, they have a lot of content, and each of the content eventually began to cross-promote one another. The only way that you can do that is through a lot of volume, right? And I believe in the future, what's going to happen is that there's going to be more artificial intelligence tools that favor creators that have libraries, not individual videos that popped off and had a lot of million views, but I'm talking about a nice body of work. That's when I believe eventually in the future, let's say you have a blog, you feed this blog into the artificial intelligence tool, and it'll turn this blog into a captivating video. It's going to sample your podcast voice. You have over 500 podcast episodes, so it's going to get a lot of rich data of how you sound. It's going to pull the data of the audio of your voice. It's going to use that audio to read your blog post in a very engaging sort of way. It's going to add graphics and everything to make for a beautiful video. So all you're responsible for is spending years building your blog library, your podcast library, and suddenly just like that, you have an engaging YouTube video. And then that YouTube video gets turned into shorts. Those shorts, the text it's pulled out, it gets turned into tweets, and you're basically just feeding everything within your own universe. That is how I believe the future is going to go. So I truly do believe that the future of content creation will favor those with libraries, not individual videos that have gotten 3 million views, 4 million views, 5 million views. I mean, think about guys like Jake Paul and Logan Paul. I get it. They have evolved. One's a boxer now, the other's in wrestling. But what I've noticed is back in the days, they used to get so many views on their videos. They were in that golden era of vlogging, and they were doing it daily. Nowadays, I mean, those videos are just sitting there collecting dust. There's not really that much potential to repurpose it. I mean, how much potential does your business have to repurpose content? I believe repurpose, that is a very powerful tool to constantly just be on the move. I believe, for example, with Armani Talks, even if I die, I think you could repurpose and remix the content in unique ways for the content to last another, I think, 500 years. Like real talk, if you get creative enough, basically this workflow that I just shared where you have blogs that can be turned into YouTube videos turned into shorts turned into tweets collected into a collection, leads to a book gets turned into bookmarks, or certain bookmarks have the most popular line from the book on it. There's just infinite potential. So that's what interests me about the content creation business, when you're capable of creating a network. And creating a network, it takes a long, long time. If you're more curious about creating networks, you should check out this book called Out of Control by Kevin Kelly. It gets a little boring at times, but the essence of the book is how a network is born. And the people that have immense wealth in this world, they're not workers. They're not people who play in the game of someone else's network. They're the ones who create the networks themselves. These are the people with immense wealth. And that's the game that I'm super interested in, the network game, not the individual video, individual podcast game. They're just different ways to do things. And I believe that's why you need to always tinker, and you need to understand your philosophy better than anyone else. If someone is asking you to explain it, you should be able to explain it. But before you're trying to explain it to other people, I think it's better to be able to explain why you're doing to yourself. There are certain times that you are going to be led down the wrong path, and it'll be years until you figure it out. So you always need to get in the habit of clearly expressing yourself. In my book, Speak Easy, one of the concepts that I bring up is known as the articulation chamber. You should create an articulation chamber where you block out a certain part of your home to strictly focus on articulating your thoughts. Just like we go to the gym to work out our body, we go to the articulation chamber to work on our communication skills, be it writing, speaking, vlogging, whatever. Learn to work on your communication skills because it is going to require a ton of practice. The smarter that you get, the harder that it becomes to communicate because now you have to sift through so much more information. So you need to keep on practicing. I noticed during the most recent hurricane, which, by the way, I actually do want to end the episode by talking about that. During the recent hurricane, I was out of business for 2 to 4 days because I got a little cocky. I didn't think I was going to lose power. So when I lost power, I was like, dang, I mean, I'm literally just chilling here doing nothing. By the time I got back, I noticed it was a little bit harder for me to express myself in a clear sort of way. So you need to have that continuous mindset whenever you are practicing your communication skills, because this is something that is going to require ongoing practice for the rest of your life. The good thing is when you can communicate and you can control your thoughts and clearly articulate it, what will happen is you remain forever young. The first thing to go for a lot of these like old people, unfortunately, is their memory. And when your memory is gone, you lose a sense of who you are. So I believe you should always read, write, speak, do anything communication skills related to be forever young. Anyways, Hurricane Milton. So I kid you not, here it was pandemonium. When Hurricane Milton was coming, people were freaking out. I mean, I saw when this news was initially local news. The local news channels, they were talking about, hey, there's a hurricane headed our way. Don't worry, it's going to be a direct hit to Tampa. But you know what they always say. A lot of Floridians, they don't take hurricanes seriously at all. They're just like, yeah, okay, a hurricane. Slowly, this news started to become national. Now CNN, Fox, MSNBC, they're talking about it. And now I'm starting to get more calls like, hey, did you hear that there's a hurricane headed directly towards Tampa? This is not good, right? I'm like, oh yeah, bro, it's a hurricane. I mean, they always say that. Then this news is going from national to global. I have cousins like, mate, are you okay, mate? And their British accent, like, yeah, bro, I'm good. And it is global news. The entire world is talking about a massive hurricane that is going to wipe out Florida. There's this meteorologist crying nonstop on camera. I mean, it was just a big mess. And so many people start to build these passionate opinions on what Floridians should do. They start to say, well, why won't they evacuate? I mean, no, they should evacuate. Like really not knowing what they're talking about. If you're talking about it from a place of love, I get it. But some of these people are so pompous with their opinions. Number one, it is not easy to evacuate because whenever you're evacuating, you have to get a thing called gas. And whenever you're trying to get a thing called gas during a moment when everyone's trying to evacuate, you're not going to find it. There are people that are spending 3 to 4 hours waiting in line during a hurricane just to be told, hey, there's no gas here. So how are you going to leave then? So that's one problem. Another problem is people just don't have money like that. It's easy if you live by yourself and you're just trying to leave. But if you have yourself, your wife, your 2 kids, a dog, how the heck are you just going to get up and leave? For how long, right? I mean, there's a process to evacuation. If you're trying to evacuate 4 to 5 people, that's going to cost you at least 2 to 3 grand, not including airline tickets. I mean, some of these places jack up their prices up so high that it's almost impossible for you to leave. So evacuation, it's not possible for many individuals. For me, it was an option, but, and this is not a good thing. I'm perfectly aware of saying that. I don't really take hurricanes that seriously. For me, it's just like, oh, okay, it's just another hurricane. And I've been through the same rodeo before. 2017, Hurricane Irma. Non-stop. Florida is going to get wiped out. Oh no. Oh, what's going to happen? And people are just freaking out non-stop. Hurricane Irma was not that bad. And I'm perfectly aware that there are people that they did get hit with certain damages. But to say that an entire uh, uh, state is going to get wiped out of the planet, this sort of rhetoric is super irresponsible. Even if you don't think that this is a big deal, people that consume news like this think it's a big deal, and they're blowing you up. Your phone is just getting hit up nonstop. It's just this eerie vibe. I mean, a lot of people, they're gentler with you too. Like, they actually think you're gonna die. I mean, a lot of people thought I was gonna die because I didn't evacuate Milton. You know what I did? I put on some shutters, but I left some shutters open just so I could watch the hurricane. One of the most therapeutic things to do is to watch a hurricane just by yourself. The electricity went out, and I was just watching the hurricane, rain, wind, all of that. And you just become introspective. You're like, man, there's so many things man can control, but man cannot control Mother Nature. I wonder though if in the future there's going to be some engineers that do something about this. Where with hurricanes, I mean, there's so much energy. Is there any way to get a certain force field that will absorb the energy and turn the hurricane wind energy into power for others, right? I mean, that's all electricity really is, right? We see those like little fan things. That's creating momentum, and that momentum is pushing the electrons. Flowing electrons equals electricity that leads to power. So imagine one of those winds, those fans that you see. Imagine that on crack. So many of them. I feel like hurricane winds can give it that. So there should be some ways to make technology that is shock absorbent for at least category 3 hurricanes that can eventually be transmutated into a power source to power cities, countries, something. I see engineers in the future doing that, because right now, I mean, what happens is whenever there's a hurricane, I just see a bunch of people leaving. But where are the engineers, right? Engineers and entrepreneurs that are taking some initiative to see, hurricanes, what are they really? At its fundamental level, it's just wind, right? Can't we transmutate that wind into a power source? I'm pretty sure in the future, they're going to find a way to do something like that. I was doing this interview recently, and I want to wrap up today's episode with that. I was doing this interview recently, and one of the guys asked me, "Yo, Armani, what do you find impactful about Armani Talks?" And I told him the Armani Talks brand, its purpose is to help out awkward engineers and introverted entrepreneurs better express themselves. And the reason that I chose those two groups of people is because I was those two groups. I'm an engineer, I'm an entrepreneur, and I believe engineers and entrepreneurs are the two most powerful forces on the planet. I don't think a politician is a powerful force. I don't think scientists are that powerful. I think they're powerful, but I'm talking like in the context of engineer, entrepreneur, not as powerful as them. Teachers, none of that. Engineers and entrepreneurs are the two most powerful forces on the planet, because entrepreneurs, they just think differently. They're thinking about all these risks that they can take for the advancement of humankind. And engineers have the knowledge to create systems to put those ideas into place. And I think it's a shame whenever an engineer is super awkward and they cannot express themselves. They know the solution, but they just don't know how to express themselves in a way where they can transmit their ideas into other people's brains. And entrepreneurs, when they're so gifted behind the scenes, but they're scared to turn on the camera and record a video, I think that's a shame. So the Armani Talks brand, within the past 4 to 5 years, I started in 2018, by the way, but it started to take off a little bit more in 2019. So 4 to 5 years, I mean, it's touched millions of people, and a lot of engineers and entrepreneurs just hit me up. Technical error again. But what I was trying to say was a lot of engineers, entrepreneurs will hit me up, and they will say stuff like, dude, because of you, I saw that one video you did a while back about how to overcome a monotone voice. I played the one word game. I overcame the monotone voice. And nowadays, I am capable of speaking up more in meetings. And due to that, I was able to create more opportunities. And I just got a promotion. I'm making $45,000 more per year. So thank you, man. I really do appreciate that. And engineers telling me that. Entrepreneurs hit me up every now and then and be like, bro, I saw that one video you did about how to start a private YouTube channel. I started that and I built a library in my private YouTube channel. And slowly I started to make it public and it started to just take off. And I really appreciate you, man, because I never even had the confidence to turn on the camera and record myself. And now I do. So thank you a lot for that, man. And when I hear that, like for me, I am super biased. Like I get it. Like a lot of nurses, teachers, doctors, scientists, whatever, like consume the ArmaniTalks content. But for me, whenever an engineer and entrepreneur discover this brand and they have leveled up by engaging with the content in some sort of way, to me, that is one of the best feelings out there because I believe engineers and entrepreneurs will solve most of the problems out there. They're not just going to talk about it. They're not just going to throw this big hissy fit, puff up their chest about it. They're actually going to do something about it. And for that, I respect them a lot. Now, if you enjoyed today's talk, I mean, you definitely want to subscribe to the ArmaniTalks free daily newsletter. Within this newsletter, you will learn much more about public speaking, storytelling, emotional intelligence, creativity, and much more. You will learn about Toastmasters, why you should start creating some sort of content while you're young, how to thrive on the digital space, and much more. ArmaniTalks.com ArmaniTalks.com/newsletter. Sign up today. And I really hope that you guys have a great rest of the year. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll catch you next time.